Welcome to What the Plus, a critical overview of the last century of family entertainment as filtered through the lens of Disney Plus. I'm Garrett Martin. I'm a writer. I'm an editor. I am a fan of much that this world has to offer. And here it is. It's the second episode of the second season. As yes, once again, this is now one of those podcasts that has seasons. Even though it's only week 2, I honestly almost didn't get this done. This week. I'm going out of town tomorrow. I'm going to be flying first time since March 4th, 2020, going on assignment, as the pros say, for Pace Magazine, my day job. And there was a ton I had to get done for work before flying out, on top of, just having to get ready for, being out of town for a few days. Pretty sure it would be a huge mistake to destroy whatever small amount of momentum the show might have by bailing on the weekly schedule, one episode into the new season. So here I am, forcing myself to do something. Hopefully you're not forcing yourself to listen. Hopefully I do a good enough job myself of guilting you into it. Actually, hopefully if you are listening, it's because of my guest. Dia Lacina is a writer and a critic who largely focuses on games. You've probably seen her work at Paste, Vice, and elsewhere, and now you're about to hear her talk about a true Disney classic, one that seems to finally be entering the upper echelon of Disney animated features in terms of critical response over 60 years after it was released. Maybe it just feels this way to me because my own appreciation for it has grown considerably over the decades, but it does seem like today's critics recognize the movie's virtues more than those of the past. Talking about Sleeping Beauty, and I don't mean just the truly magnificent villain that drives the plot, but also Ivan Durrell's gorgeous art direction. It might be a little too similar to Cinderella or Snow White in terms of some of the story beats, but between Earl's tapestry-like backgrounds, the rich colors, and the genuinely sinister Maleficent, Sleeping Beauty might be more enjoyable than those two movies. There's a lot to dig into, both with the Disney feature and the original fairy tale, so this is going to be slightly longer than usual. I try to keep these things under 45 minutes and never more than an hour, but Dia deserves an exception. Still, I don't want to ramble on, so let's get to it. Let's talk about Sleeping Beauty. All right. Hey, I'm Garrett. This is What the Plus. I'm here with critic Dia Lacina, who does great stuff on games and anime music sometimes at, places like Waypoint and a little website called Paste, and for her own Patreon and her YouTube page. How's it going, Dia?
Hey, it's great. Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, no, I hope it is fun.
I get to talk about
thank
games,
you very
I get
much
to talk
for
about
joining.
music, and I get to talk about anime, but I never get to talk about Disney. So this is exciting.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm not going to
you,
review Kingdom Hearts games.
do you have a connection to Disney? Were you a fan as a child? Were you into all these movies like so many people are?
No, I wasn't really. Honestly, I don't know that I really liked Disney as a kid. I loved Epcot Center. I hated the Magic Kingdom. I didn't hate the Magic
What did you hate about it? Just the fantasy aspect?
I think it was just I didn't care. Fuck the Country Bear Jamboree.
Oh man, you're striking me to the quick right there. Jeez.
I know this is Garrett territory, but I refuse to go on this little space shuttle mountain. What's it called?
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain. Yeah. I was like, no.
Yeah, the roller coaster.
Were
you afraid of coasters or?
No, I think I rejected Disneyland, Disney World. I was on the East Coast. Rejected Disney World just on principle of it not being, I was an hour away from Busch Gardens and King's Dominion, so I grew up on roller coasters, and then you're gonna drag me here, you're gonna make this big deal about how it's so expensive, and then it's just Space Mountain is the best you got. There's the one, right. the runaway train was meh. And then we have to go the Jungle Boat Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. It's a small world. No. Pirates of the Caribbean. I liked the dog that's getting like taunted like to bring the keys over in the Pirates of the
Right.
Caribbean ride, but that was like it.
Some of
So
these things are ones that I definitely have learned I love more as an adult than I did as a kid. Like I didn't like the Jungle Cruise much, and it has a lot of problems. They're currently working on removing a lot of the implicit racism or inherent racism of that ride. But as an adult, I can definitely like get into like the intentionally goofy kitschiness of it more than I did as a kid, where it
yeah,
just seemed lame.
there is part of me now that's like, I bet I would like Disney World more now. Especially now that they're fucking with Epcot Center and it's gonna be
Oh
bad.
yeah. When did you last go to, or when you were a kid and you loved Epcot? Like, what year was that, if you don't mind?
1989, I think.
Yeah, it is a completely different place. Like, other than the World Showcase and Spaceship Earth, the ride and the Globe, everything else is completely different now.
Wait, no. The last time I went to Epcot Center, and this is important, was in 1997 for a school trip,
Mhm.
because I went to the fancy preppy white kids school,
Yeah,
and like we had this big like week-long field trip to Epcot Center. I don't know why, but like, and my parents were just like, "You're going on this because we went a week without you." And so I got sent on that, and that was my last time at Epcot Center. But that's when they had opened like the big like games and computer pavilion,
hmm
and so like it was just like wall to wall Sega Genesis set up. And then they
Yep.
had the really bad like it was like the Body Wars like ride, but it was smaller, and you sat in this
Yeah.
little booth and you played some like space shooter that was like really janky, but the space shooter moved, and it was really funny because it was just like this is just like a group project version of Afterburner.
Yeah.
Why am I not just going to play the Afterburner or like the G-Lock cabinets that moved? Those were
Right.
better.
Unsurprisingly, they don't have Sega Genesis anymore at Epcot in 2021, but they also don't have Body Wars or that entire pavilion that you're talking about. It's
That's
all
so fucked up
gone.
to me because it was like such a big deal when I was that last there. It was
Yeah.
just like the video game pavilion, and then they had like the supercomputer, so you could like walk through like and be like, here's a giant cray that's liquid cooled, and you could see the cool liquid bubbling inside, and it's like, man, my computer at home looks stupid. It's just a gray box, and of course now we have liquid cooled computers at home that just bubble and glow, and it's just like,
Yeah, right.
okay, I guess this came true for
Yeah.
everyone.
Like that's I mean, I like to complain about Epcot being destroyed, and there's so much that they could have kept, but that is kind of the big problem with Epcot and with Tomorrowland at the Disneyland and Magic Kingdom is that, they're based on visions of the future, and the future just keeps on coming. So those things get dated pretty quickly.
Like that was a great thing. Like when I remember, like when I first went to Epcot, the Tomorrowland, it was like a vision of the future from like the 1970s.
Yeah.
Like I don't know when the ride was built, but it had like I don't think it had been updated for when I was there. So it was like, you know, fucking like Darren Stevens is going to be making breakfast of the future. It's going to make toast and eggs and bacon for him every morning. His
Yeah.
wife is not going to have to do that. She can just sit there and shake her ass on the new built-in wall-operated Electrolux exercise machine. And it's just like, wow.
And
Like,
everything looks like it was designed by Sid Mead. It all has
yeah.
that like retro futuristic look.
And it was great. Like I kind of loved that like the Tomorrowland promise was like, the sad now dead white people's vision of like the worst, Jetsons future.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that still at Tomorrowland. The play that's where like Space Mountain and all that stuff is, like in the castle parks, the Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. But yeah, Epcot, they basically tried to future proof it, and in the process, it's lost what has made Epcot awesome. When I was a kid.
Yeah. No, like Epcot was like watching my grandmother throw down on a huge hunk of grouper in the underwater like dining restaurant, like right next to
Yeah.
a giant fucking grouper. And like
Yes.
the imagination, the journey to imagination, like that was my shit.
That's now a ride with Eric Idle playing a stuck-up scientist
I
and Figment farting.
hate that so much.
Yeah, everyone does. No one
Like,
likes that ride now.
yeah, that was so bad. Like, I just remember just like we're in the room with like the fucked up colors now. It's like, yeah, we're in the room with the fucked up colors. Now we're in the room with draw with light. Okay, and then
Yep.
now it's like I look at it, I'm just like, oh, you made it a branded experience. Fuck off. I
Right.
mean, I guess it
And
was always a branded experience, but now it feels like one.
exactly. Yeah. You mentioned how you grew up near Busch Gardens and what was the other one? Was it Magic Mountain you mentioned or King's Dominion
King's
or
Dominion. Yeah.
okay. So that's I guess like the Williamsburg Busch Gardens, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I lived in Florida until I was 12. So I grew up an hour from that Busch
Oh,
Gardens,
that's right. I keep
which
forgetting they have one in Florida too. Yeah.
yeah, the dark continent. I think they don't use that name anymore, but like its gimmick was that it was all, supposed to be Africa or whatever. So they've had to change so much of it, obviously, because it was not a very sensitive portrayal of Africa back in the day. But so like today, do you go to theme parks? And if so, or amusement parks, do you prefer the more Six Flags style, like fast-paced thrill ride stuff over, a Disney style attempt at storytelling?
No, I have never been to a Six Flags in my entire life. And like, God, I don't remember the last time I went to an amusement park.
Even the bad ones aren't cheap. So
yeah, like I just think it's funny because like I just don't think like it's come up. Like, it's hard to get together a group of your friends and be like, let's go to Busch Gardens or let's go, and.
A lot of people think it's a weird thing for adults to do. I've encountered that a lot over the last. I mean, I didn't go to any theme park for like 15 years. Like the Disney thing for me, it was an annual thing as a kid, sometimes more than once a year, and then I didn't really go at all from like teenager years through college into my late 20s, and then somehow I kind of rediscovered it in my 30s, and it's become one of my favorite things to do now.
Well, I had like a number of friends that like one of my
art really like I'm sorry, what's that?
I was one of my friends like actually like worked at Disneyland. And I've had a number of friends that work at amusement parks and they're like, I love working at amusement parks. Yeah. And so I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, I could see that.
I think it would be one of the worst jobs you could possibly have because there's so many people you have to engage with, and so many of them are just going to be complete assholes.
Yeah, like one of my friends, like the running joke is that like all of like the blonde Disney princesses are based off of her, and they're all stealing her IP. And she was she was a Cinderella at Disneyland, and she was like, it's it was really fun, but also they're in a horrible company to work for, and we were all like abused and underpaid. So
and they laid off tens of thousands of employees over the last year while restoring corporate benefit or executive benefits and all that. But anyway, so your critical work, getting back into what makes Dia, you do a lot of Let's Plays, right?
Yeah, I decided to get into that because when you're doing reviews for games, they take up all your time. You get them at the last minute. Like, I love hearing the stories from people like, the old guard of games journalism. And they're like, man, we used to get like a month to review a 12-hour game. And it's like, fuck you, buddy.
I haven't had a debug unit since like the PS3 360 generation. But back then, if you had a debug, you could absolutely get a game 6 weeks or more in advance,
Wild. Like,
I know.
I have no idea when Square Enix is finally going to drop like Nier code. Like, and that is a long fucking game.
Oh, for Replicant?
Yeah, for Replicant. Like,
okay, we've had code for a couple weeks.
Really?
Another writer is going to handle that one.
Yeah, because I had asked like Rob Zachney at Waypoint if like I'm like, hey, you're always bugging me to do work for you. If you want me to do Nier, I'll do that. And I haven't gotten code for that yet. But
Square Enix also likes to send out massive promo packs. Like yesterday, I got this box in the mail with a note on the box saying, alcohol, like legal warning or whatever, and it's like Outriders beer and Outriders hot sauce and like a Outriders carabiner that's like part bicycle lock part, flashlight. And it's like, this is why. Like, why are they sending me beer for Outriders,
That's
I don't know.
so bizarre. I don't like, I don't understand video games. They're
Yeah.
terrible. Should just cancel them and just do amusement parks.
Exactly. But so like the Let's Play, I mean, you're working on series right now on Dark Souls and Dragon's
Yeah,
Dogma and XCOM Enemy Within. You can see these at your YouTube. I can see the format being like really useful from a critical perspective because it's way more immediate for the viewer, like you don't have to sort of like kind of explain the concepts that you're working with in text. But it also seems like a lot of work, just like sort of like getting all the video captured and like editing everything together, or do you just do it live and just speak off the top of your head while you're playing?
I mean, I just do it live as it happens. I'm not one of those people that's going to like go back through. I mean, that's the thing. The Let's Play thing happened because it was like, here is something that I can do that also gives me the chance to play games that I want to play that are outside of the scope of work. Because if I'm having to like review Dark Souls or something like that, like, if I'm going to do, I didn't review it, but if I had to review Demon Souls, that's going to be 40 plus hours of my life.
Yeah.
That like, I'm not going to be able to play any other games, but like this way, it's like, hey, I can, I'm turning something that I love into content, but at least I can kind of do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
Like that's why,
Makes
like,
sense.
like Let's Play was like, these are games that I want to play right now, and I can set it up so that my week is just playing those games, and then I get paid for it, because people
Yeah.
like what I do. Cool. That worked
That's
out.
awesome. I've been toying with trying to do a video thing for years on old TurboGrafx games, and it's just like when it gets down to like the technical nitty gritty of trying to plug a VCR into a capture card in order to get me, because I can't just plug the TurboGrafx directly into the capture card. I have to have the intermediary of a VCR or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, like
it gets confusing.
that's why like I started because I wanted to play. I was replaying because I finally got like a decent computer, and I was like, yo, I can emulate my PlayStation 2 games on this. So let's do that. And I was like, the first thing I did was like, I want to play Nocturne. This was before they'd announced the remaster coming out.
Right.
And so I was like playing it and I was like, this is awesome. Fucking love this. And it looks good, but it's still like it looks slightly crisper. And then like the PlayStation 2 on a TV thing, but like it also kind of works because it's a very kind of crisp, slick sort of art style.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is cool. Wait, what if I bet the old Shin Megami Tensei games are finally translated. Let's go look. And so I was like, fuck it. Let's play through all the Megami Tensei games.
Have you completed that series?
I I started with Megami Tensei, or Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 1, which has been translated, and you can get an NES patch for that, for the ROM. And that I did like 30 hours, and then I was like, I think I'm good. I like completely lost momentum on it because it's so. All it is grinding. Like it is so much grinding. Like even beyond like the other games it's a grindy series, but that was way too grindy.
Like I have a fondness for the original Final Fantasy because that's like the first one I played, but even that today I can't really play that long because it's just so repetitive,
Yeah, and that like at least that like there is a little bit more variety here. Like with Mega 10, it's just like okay, we're gonna grind until we can get this next level, the next 10 levels so that we can morph our demons and like we can do our demon synthesis, and like you're locked out. Like you could get the demons but you can't change them, you can't morph them until you're the right level, and like it takes like just hours to get levels. So and it's also really brutal, like holy shit. So I was just like, okay, we'll skip this, we'll go to Megami Tensei 2, which is apparently the interesting of the early Mega 10s, and that one hasn't been translated properly yet or fully. They've got like the menus and that's it, but it's like that one actually like starts building a heavy story component to it, and then it was like and so there is a Super Nintendo remake of those games that's further down the line, and I'm going in release order. So we have to skip over Mega 2. So now we're on Shin Megami Tensei 1. But like, the great thing is you don't have to hook up your TurboGrafx 16. You can just do emulation.
I know, but it doesn't feel the same.
That is the thing. Like it is one of those things where like I'm sitting there and I'm just like, you know what? We're throwing the weird, scan lines and like the CRT fuzziness like on it, and I'm just like, this looks kind of good. Like I've got like the weird like when you like the way the glass kind of bubbles up and makes the chromatic aberrations around the edges of things, but it's still not the same.
And I don't like playing games on my computer, and I love the feel of the original Turbo controller. Like a big part of playing those old games isn't just the actual game, but like the way you engage with it, the way you interact with it, the way you feel when you're playing it. And it's just not the same, when you're emulating.
Yeah, no, it's not like.
Yeah. So what's I'm guessing those are like fan translations, like you were saying, of the Shin Megami Tensei games.
Yeah, they're the Shin Megami Tensei 1 that actually has a real translation because I guess they ported it to like iOS.
Okay.
At one point.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
So what's of all the games you've been Let's playing, what's been, you think, your best Let's Play series?
It's got to be the Dragon's Dogma series because that one is the one I've been having kind of the most fun with because I early on had a technical issue where it just, I guess I didn't click on like the second track in OBS or something. No, because it did record it. It recorded the second track, but it was recorded just nothing but static. And I was like, fuck, I just did a 2.5 hour Let's Play and it's got nothing but static. And what do I do? Like, it's kind of a big, crucial section. I can't just skip this. And I don't want to be the one that sits there and talks over it again. And one of my friends was just like, I'll talk over it. And I was just like, wait a minute. What if I get like a bunch of you and you all do like, I just chop this into 30-minute segments and I just randomly assign you one and you just get that. And we just do it in Exquisite Corpse style. And that worked out so great. And it was so much fun. And I was just like, okay, we don't have to be straight with all of these. So then like I started doing like, I'd leave my pee breaks in and then I'd be like, okay, I've got like 2 minutes and 37 seconds to fill right here. And then like, oh, I've got like, 30 seconds here where I was like interrupted by like, someone screaming outside. Like just so like, then it was like, okay, well, let's leave those sections in. We'll just fill them with something else. And so that's when you end up with like, I had like a Char randomly showing up the day I had one that had to go up when it was announced that Trump got COVID. And so I have Jack Frost announcing to Isabel from Animal Crossing that Trump got COVID. And then Shinji shows up. Shinji from Evangelion shows up. And he's like, maybe we shouldn't like make fun of someone getting COVID. And then like, I think Isabel calls him a liberal.
So there are people who are already like you deconstructing the form of the Let's Play, basically.
Yeah,
like
I kind of came into it with no reverence and and I realized that I was being the asshole who was making 3-hour YouTube videos, even though I can't stand when like white dudes make 3-hour YouTube videos because they're mostly just like testaments to their own egos. And I was just like, no, we're not doing that. Dia's for the people. We are going to make these as entertaining as possible while still being, maintaining the levels of criticism in the games that, we're trying to achieve.
As a white guy with this podcast, I am intensely aware of length, and I am not letting any episode go over an hour. I'm trying to bring them all in under 45 minutes because I don't want to be one of those white dudes just ranting on and on about nonsense on the internet.
Well, we're at 24 minutes now, so should we probably switch over to talking about Sleeping Beauty?
That was going to be the segue. The very awkward segue was, and speaking of the podcast, let's actually start it for real and talk about Sleeping Beauty, which you picked out, the 1959 Sleeping Beauty. Why did you, this is the first question I always ask, why did you want to pick out Sleeping Beauty to talk about for the show?
Because I didn't want you to have the one Indian show up on your podcast to talk about Pocahontas or Peter Pan.
Yes.
And also, I didn't really want to be that Indian. So I was like, okay, the one Disney movie that I really like vividly still remember is Sleeping Beauty. Or I guess, and then Pinocchio. For some reason, those are the two movies that I had. I remember the thick, you remember like the VHS cases from like the 80s that were like really thick
Like
plastic, and it had that,
clamshell almost. Like
yeah,
they
and it had
kind
that
of snapped into
rubbery kind of
place.
material, and they really clamped together.
Yeah.
And we had Sleeping Beauty and Pinocchio,
Hmm.
and like I have like very vivid, weird sense memory connections to both of them. Um, and like I don't know why those were the only two we had, but those were also like both of them made me intensely uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but also I really appreciated them.
They
Um,
are two of the creepiest of the classics. They are also, I think you just have discriminating parents because they are artistically probably, maybe Bambi's up there as well, but they're probably the two visually most striking and interesting of the early Disney classics. I mean, Pinocchio is still the greatest movie they've ever made, where Sleeping Beauty is some of the best art direction they had. It has like a unique look to it that most of those movies back then didn't aspire to. And it was actually controversial within the company. A lot of the animators did not like the art director and the work he brought to Sleeping Beauty with like those sort of medieval tapestry and backgrounds, like how everything's kind of flat but like super detailed and everything.
it's very weird because you've got like a whole bunch of different ideas all colliding into one another to like make, these backgrounds that like the in a lot of like the Disney movies, the one of the things that really does work is that the characters, even when they're very flat, like no one has a lot of like shading in like,
Yeah.
Sleeping Beauty or Snow White or Cinderella. Like the characters are just flat colors, but they don't glide over it like as like eerily as they do in Sleeping Beauty. And Sleeping Beauty or even has that kind of opening motif of like zooming in on this bejeweled, overwrought
Yes.
book, that's on like a pedestal in this like overwrought, like overly designed, elaborate, kind of Russian aristocracy room, which like makes sense because it's like, okay, we are basing this. This is based off of Tchaikovsky's ballet, which is, I would call it extremely ridiculous and over the top, in like really the best way. Also, it's, like one of those proto Ready Player Ones because at the end of it, and I'm surprised at the restraint on Disney's part here because when they do have the wedding, and I didn't look closely enough because like maybe they do. Maybe there's some weird like Easter eggs thrown in. But like at the end of the ballet, the entire fucking history of fairy tales shows up. You get like Puss in Boots, you get the White Cat, you get the Bluebird, you get like
Hmm.
Cinderella shows up. Like all of these like weird characters show up in the ballet at the end for the royal wedding. And it's like, yes, fairy tales are weird. They come out of a weird French, parlor
Yeah.
tradition. And like that's what I think like the most about Sleeping Beauty is that it does have this very strange sense of this is a fairy tale, and this is what if we like think of like animating a fairy tale in the mind, this is what it does. And like,
Hmm.
one of the traditions of fairy tale, one of them is that like they were supposed to feel very extemporaneous and like, you were just spontaneously telling this story about, gentility and like their, encounters with like weirdness in the forest and things like that. So, um, but like you do get this like kind of weird, spontaneous, disjointed nature to Sleeping Beauty, where like we don't really get songs in Sleeping Beauty the way like, we're not going to sit here and we're breaking into Hakuna Matata now.
Yeah.
We get, like
There's
the
one
good
song basically,
there's
and
the
and,
one
and
song,
it's based on actually a melody from the ballet from
right?
Tchaikovsky's ballet, and it just repeats 3 or 4 times, different characters singing it, or I guess singing it, but then you have different choral arrangements and stuff. It's just sort of like a motif that they repeat throughout the film, and it does not have, like you were saying, that more explicitly commercial here, go buy the soundtrack to hear these 8 songs format that you get later on with Disney films.
No, and even the way it's brought in is because the singing voices, I actually don't know if they were the same voices that sang it that were the voice actors. I can't remember.
Hmm.
But they are such very, they're
They
much more
were, yes.
powerful. They were? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Like, because they really belt the shit out of it when they do bring it in. And it's just like, this is the I know you, and it's just like, whoa, a second ago you were just a kind of a nerdy little white guy prince in the forest, and now you're just like really just hamming it up with this big operatic, vocal performance. And same with like Aurora. When she sings it, she just kind of like breaks into this kind of like mezzo soprano to like just like decimate the forest with her voice.
Yeah.
But there's also these weird segments like where like when the fairies are first blessing Aurora at her annunciation, and like we get these weird hallucinatory sequences with like a little bit of song where they sing the blessing, this like chorus from like nowhere, like is singing the blessing about like you will be great of face and beauty, and it's
and
like,
you see
what?
like the swirling cosmos is like
Yeah,
a little
and then
like a silhouette of Aurora floats into the sky.
yeah, and like we pull out into this like these bizarre just like fever dream moments, and like that's one of the things that like this and Pinocchio is kind of has a more grounded realism to it, when it does break into these kind of like almost apocalyptic visions. I
Pinocchio
think,
is almost completely overwhelmingly dark and depressing. Like
yeah,
after 10 minutes, it's just terrible thing upon terrible thing, including some of like the Paradise Island segments of Pinocchio. That is still disturbing to me as, a middle-aged adult today, like when the children are turning into donkeys and yelling for their mamas and stuff.
yeah, like it's very like what is going on here. But like, with Sleeping Beauty, you get like the thing that like the two big things that really stuck with me, and I remembered like as soon as they happened when I was watching it last night, like just like all of the hair on my arms stuck up, and I was just like, I remember this feeling, and it's weird, but like the apocalyptic nature of the shot where it's all of the spinning wheels that are being set ablaze, and then we see this big mound, and it's like, and then it's like just initially just a mound, and then the kind of the color dims on it, and then it's just like erupts in fire, and then we pull out, and there's this huge pyre, just like these little silhouettes of people watching it in the courtyard, and not enough people. Like it's not like everyone in the kingdom showed up to watch this burning, and it's like it's like almost just like like 10 people kind of milled about at the foot of this castle that are like, it's like, oh, you're the weird like squad that went in and grabbed all these just breaking into houses, stealing like spindles, and then you set them all ablaze.
And then that's like the only color in the entire shot is the color of the pyre, and like everything else is just like shadowed and purple and blacks, and it's a really striking image.
Yeah, like it is like really intense.
Yeah. So I think when you were talking about sort of how the characters seem to sort of creepily glide over the backgrounds, there was like apparently like a lot of tension making this film, to the point where Ivan Durrell, the painter who was the art director, who was the one who wanted to make it look like a medieval painting, he actually left during production because the animators and the supervising director really did not like what he was wanting to do with it. Like they kind of wanted to do a more traditional Disney film. And even though Walt supported Earl's vision, it just got to be, I guess, too much, the tension backstage. And so he wound up leaving halfway through, which perhaps is why you do have that weird tension where the figures, the foreground stuff, it looks a lot like it's standard Disney film of the era. I mean, it's the exact same designs for all the woodland creatures that they used all the time back then. But then it's contrasted with this, almost eerie background that often doesn't really go with what you're seeing in the foregrounds, and it makes the whole film, it gives it a bit more of that malice that you kind of feel.
Yeah, well, because like nature is not natural.
It makes it just a little darker.
Yeah, and like what I'm saying is like the natural world is very bizarre. It breaks at the wrong angles. When they have the tree trunks, you get like these close-ups of the tree trunks, and it looks like a texture from Dark Souls.
Right.
Like it's too overly textured. You can see.
Or you have those trees with like the really long, slender trunks, and then you get to the top, and there's like this perfect square cluster of leaves and limbs at the top.
And if you look into, if you pull in, like get up close and look at the like that square is like so interconnected. It's like all like just hundreds of like individual vines and foliage drawings, like all slammed together in weird ways, just kind of coiling in on itself.
It's all extremely detailed in a way a lot of Disney backgrounds weren't. And this was actually right after I did, or 2 months after I did 101 Dalmatians, because this was the last film before they started using the xerography application that they sort of created for 101 Dalmatians to basically make the backgrounds simpler, less detailed, more easily repeatable. It's almost like they were like, we're never doing this again. We got to make this crap simpler because of how stressful Sleeping Beauty was to make or something.
And that's the thing, is like watching this, like there's one sequence that like it's right before Aurora is supposed to return. She's done her 16 years in the wilderness in hiding, and now she's going to come back and she's going to marry the prince and everything's going to be fine. But it's the two fathers, King Stefan and King whatever the fuck. And they're both like, I remember Stefan's name because like my association with Stefan is Steve Urkel's like cool, sexy alter ego. And so I'm just like, King Stefan. Like the entire time watching it again, I was just like, all I could picture was like sexy Urkel, and I'm just like, fucking Stefan. But like,
I honestly don't know if they even named the other king. He's Philip's dad, basically.
Yeah, so King Philip's dad, and so they're like, King Stefan is all stressed out, and like King Philip's dad is just like chowing down. Prince Philip's dad is like chowing down. Weird that we're doing Prince Philip.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It was not a Prince Charming archetype, but like, and then they're like, they get into this fight and they're having this big like kind of argument, and like they're just kind of going back and forth and singing while they're drinking, and they're just getting like hammered. And there's this weird royal troubadour manservant that shows up, and like while the two of them are doing everything, he's got his own little B plot where he's just trying to get more and more shit-faced. And
he's just stealing wine when they don't realize it.
Yeah, and like it's such a complicated sequence because it's just like you added this third character that didn't need to be here. Like the two of them guys on their own just drinking and being like scrumps, which what the fuck, scrumps? But like they're doing their little song about getting shit-faced and being old dads. And then like there's this like whole other narrative arc that is happening with this weird manservant that like has no purpose here. He's not doing anything.
Maybe they're just like, oh, we got to add some humor to this exposition so that people don't get bored. But it's like the kings were already being pretty funny anyway.
Like, that's the thing. It's like they're like the comedy section, and then you add in this whole other like comedic element that's just like, you have complicated this movie, the scene right here, and this is like we're talking like drawing and painting by hand and hand photography, and like, God, adding a third character. I mean, shit.
He eventually passes out under the table with his head and his lute or whatever. Yeah, he gets really drunk.
Yeah, he ends up drinking out of the lute. Yeah.
So I've got some prepared questions, so I'm going to go back to them real fast.
Okay.
Maleficent, what's the pettiest thing you've done after not getting invited to a party?
Shit. I don't know what not being invited to a party's like.
Oh, yeah? You're always on the guest list?
Either that or people know I don't want to go to a party. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I've never been like, oh, there was a party that I wasn't invited to that I would have gone to. It's more just like, people either know not to call me for it or like I'm there.
Yeah.
So
talking about the character Maleficent overall, I mean, I know there's been this movement to sort of give backgrounds and backstories to every villain to try to humanize them. This was one of the first ones that Disney did with the Angelina Jolie movie, 10 years ago. Do you think Maleficent needs to be humanized?
So Maleficent is really interesting because I actually love Maleficent in this movie. I did not watch the Angelina Jolie one outside of like I've walked through the room when it's been on and I've caught bits and pieces of it, but I didn't really have any, I didn't care about it. Like at the time it was kind of like, okay, Angelina Jolie is playing Maleficent. That seems right. All right. I'm I'm good here. Like whatever. But Maleficent if you just watch Sleeping Beauty and you haven't like seen the ballet or read any of the fairy tales that have been like written down, and like where the character Maleficent is not the original character's name. God, her name's like Carabossa or something like that. It's eventually, I should say eventually, that becomes the name attributed to the character, who I think is just an unnamed evil fairy originally. Right. One, I love the idea of just calling her Maleficent. Just like, this is just like an incredibly like Star Wars ass thing where it's just like, we're just gonna just be like, you're gonna have the names. It's like the bad name.
It's like Cruella de Vil. Obviously, you're destined to be evil with a name like that.
And it's just like, she's a known quantity to the kingdom. And like, it's very interesting because you look at where, you know, she lives, and like, it is just like the most kick-ass, heavy metal, Dark Souls ass, like boss zone. You know, it's like this like big foreboding evil castle. The drawbridge to like the front of it, the chains that hold the drawbridge are fists coming out of the drawbridge holding the chains, and they get pulled into like gargoyle mouths. What the fuck? That's awesome. You know, she's got this horde of like pig and bird and alligator and human, like they're all kind of just mashed up, like random, like, you know, they have this kind of like Ralph Bakshi quality to them in their like randomness. Like
these
just
evil goons.
Yeah, and then she's got this like dope ass bird, and then she's like, you know.
Were you surprised, given the era, that raven never becomes a racist stereotype at any point?
You know, it's like watching it again. Like as a kid, I knew like watching it, I'm like, oh, she's got the weird like fucked up raven, and like, you know, and I remember Dumbo, which is also another one of those weird fucked up movies, and I'm like, it's weird that the black bird did not become a racist stereotype. Thank God. But
maybe they were slightly more evolved by 1959. I don't know.
I guess it just didn't fit with what they were going for. It was one of those things. It's like there's, you know, like it's like the angry gamer argument that there's no black people in medieval Europe, and as we are told, this is the 14th century. Times are changing. But like, you know, Maleficent is just like, you know, she's towering, and she's, you know, she's got this very expressive, you know, drag queen face, like, and like, you know, she's the original Lady Dimitrescu or whatever, you know, she's the tall baddie that's hot and everyone wants her to choke her. Like, you know.
It's fine to just have her be, you know, just evil. Like, you don't need to explain how she became evil. You know, her name is Maleficent. Obviously she's gonna be evil. And it's, you know,
it's really funny because there's like, you know, we get like little weird snippets about who she is. Like it's, you know, we're gonna use another Dark Souls example. She has these kind of like weird one sentence, you know, kind of nuggets that are like kind of on the periphery of describing who she is. You know, we get Merryweather's like, you know, she just doesn't seem very happy. And like there is like this weird moment where they're kind of thinking about her personality, where it's like she is someone who doesn't understand joy or niceties. And it's like no one really unpacks that for us, or why that is, or what could be happening there. It's like maybe this is just who she is. She just doesn't understand it. It's not her deal. But we also get that she's existed for a while. Like she is a known quantity to the people of the kingdom, and like, you know, it's really bizarre because like the king is like, oh, I'm sorry, we forgot, blah 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 blah, and then the queen, who her like one line in the entire movie is just being like, wait, your excellency, what can we do? And it's really interesting that the queen calls her your excellency. Like that is like one of the most interesting moments of this movie.
Do you think if she had been officially invited, like if she had been invited, would she have actually given a legitimately nice gift, or like, is she still going to be evil because that's what she is?
Yeah, like I don't know. But also, if you know, we have this being of pure evil is the way they think of her. They think of her as just wholly evil. She is Sauron in this world. Yeah. But like as soon as Sauron shows up, everyone's like, oh fuck, we got to go kill Sauron. Maleficent is just hanging out, just being Maleficent. No one has gone and been like, yo, we need to like mass our armies together, Prince Philip's dad, and like go take care of this big evil fairy witch who we find out is mortal. Like, you know, like.
Although we don't see a corpse, so who knows? We just see like a puddle with a sword in it or something.
Which is a weird thing. Like, I always wonder whenever someone's doing that, like what they're trying to, communicate. Is it just like, oh, like evil's just disintegrated, like it just evaporates,
it has no soul, so it just like disappears and stuff.
There's no substance to them. Or like, is it like, oh, but like evil is just, becoming part of the ether and they'll remanifest the way Sauron does. Like I don't know what we're going for here, Walt.
So on the flip side of Maleficent, you've got the three good fairies, who they're so incompetent at cooking and dressmaking. How do they get by for 16 years without magic? I kind of want to see, like, I don't need Maleficent's backstory. I want to see how these idiots lived for long when they can't do anything.
This is the one thing that I wrote down in my notes. Like, that was just like, how the fuck did you make it 16 years? You can't even like bake a cake. And like, I mean, I know, like, I can follow the instructions, but like, we get Fauna, who is like sitting there just going like, tisp, tisp, what's a tisp? And then Flora's like, it means no, it's Merryweather. It's like teaspoon. And then
Merryweather's the only one with anything going on, I think, up top.
And like, that's the thing. Like, Merryweather is like, she's like just kind of like the one who's like, look, we can't live without magic. And like, no, this is fucked up. You're doing it wrong. You don't know how to bake a cake. You don't know how to sew.
They just put like an unbroken egg in a bunch of flour. Like, they don't even break the egg.
2 eggs, fold in gently. Well, because you can't break the eggs because you're folding them in gently. Exactly. And it's funny because like that's just really reminded me of when I was taking in college, and I took one like class on intro to programming, and like it was like, we did this experiment where the teacher was a robot that we were having to guide into going to the refrigerator and making an omelet. And it was just like, okay, walk to the refrigerator, open the door, take out the eggs, put the eggs in the bowl. And it's like, oh, we forgot to tell you to crack the eggs.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I'm just like watching, like Flora do that. I'm like, yeah, I remember this exercise in like Java.
Have you ever had a 16-year plan that just falls apart at the last possible second, like these good fairies have had?
Like that. It's really funny because they take such care at the end to like, pluck up like all of the cracks and things like that and close all the doors and lock them. And then no one thinks about the chimney.
Yeah.
Which is what, that's what undoes like everything. They would have been fine if like, well, okay, they would have been fine if they didn't decide to get into a battle over pink versus blue, which is just like, I'm like, again, gender reveal parties keep fucking everything up.
I guess you need stuff like that to contrast the legitimately scary creepiness that you see with Maleficent and all that,
It's really funny because, like, they make Maleficent so, like, villainous-y and just, like, it's like, oh, she's green and she's got the big eyebrows. First of all, everyone in this has Instagram eyebrows. I don't know if you noticed this, but they are big and they are full and they are arched as shit, and it's great. But, like, and then Maleficent has like the heavy purple eyeshadow that's, like lid to to brow, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah. She has all the powers of hell too. She really is the most metal of Disney villains.
Like that's the thing. And she's just like, I am invoking hell, and it's like, damn, you brought up hell, lady. And then you turned into a dragon.
I think this really kind of points out how ridiculous their gendered marketing is, because, in the past they didn't. That's kind of a fairly recent thing, like the last 30 or 40 years or so. Like the concept of Disney princesses being like the separate line of IP that they market, that's literally from the 90s. Here's a movie that has like some of the most daring action of any of the classic Disney films. It's got a frightening villain with a huge dragon. As we said, she herself invokes all the powers of hell. But it's somehow fallen into this princess hole where, oh no, that's just for girls. And it's really frustrating because when you watch it, you see, no, boys should love this thing too. These were made for all kids,
Yeah, like, I mean, it's really weird because it's like Prince Stefan. I love Prince Stefan, or not Prince Stefan, Prince Philip's like transformation into a man, where like, you know, when he first present, they're like, okay, now go look at Aurora, and he's just like looking at this baby in the cradle, and he's just like, gross.
Yeah.
What is this? Why am I here? I want to go play
I'm
knight.
marrying this little baby. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like later we see him in the forest, and then he sees Aurora, and he is just like instantly horny on main for her.
Right.
I also love his horse Samson. Samson might be like the second best character in the whole movie.
He's got no time to go flirt. He's like, nope.
He's like, I'm not going to be your wingman, buddy.
Yeah. But unless you give me some carrots, which he then unpromises the carrots.
He does.
Man,
yeah,
Prince Philip's kind of a jerk.
But Samson fucks him over. Samson's like, bumped you off into the mud, buddy.
Yep.
Should have held on better.
Yeah. So say it's your 16th birthday, and in one afternoon you find out you're a princess, you learn your real name, you find out that the women who raised you are not your parents, you meet your real parents, you meet your true love, you get cursed into an undying sleep, and then you wake up and get married. Is that a sweet 16?
Yeah, like it's really funny because I don't know how I would deal with it, but like there's like this sequence where they're walking her in, and they're like, look, you can't marry the dude you just met in the fucking forest. Which one, good. We should all have someone that says, no, bitch, you can't marry the random dude you just met in the forest. Even though it turns out you actually are going to marry the random dude you just met in the forest because
we decided to make you 16 years ago when you were born.
That's how romances work. But like, there's this sequence where they walk her in, and she is so traumatized. It is like the most traumatized looking character in like the history of animation. You know, she's got the hood up, and then they just kind of walk her in, and she's completely catatonic, and they sit her in front of this big vanity, and they're like, it's gonna be great. You're gonna marry the prince, and everything's gonna be fine. And then they're like, this bitch is gonna kill herself. Like, someone watch her because she is not okay. And then they turn their backs for a second, and then Maleficent shows up, and she's just like, bitch, guess what? You're gonna die. And then like Beauty's like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna do drugs and walk through the fireplace down this corridor that wasn't here a minute ago and just touch this spindle because whatever.
She literally has no idea what that is. She has never seen one in her entire life.
It's so weird. So she's like, what is this?
I'll touch. This is the first reaction. Yeah.
We
learn by touching.
That sequence is like some dark shit. And it is like they're like we're gonna take you back to this place where you've never been. You don't know anything about it, and we're gonna make you do something that you don't want to do, and that's your life now. Everything you knew is a lie, and she's just like shut down completely. And then she goes into a sleep, and then Maleficent is like, I'm gonna go kidnap the prince. That she wasn't planning on, which is like my favorite thing. Is just like she just shows up at like, you know, the cabin in the woods, and it's like, I'm gonna kidnap whoever's here, I guess.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Final thoughts. What do you think about this Disney version of the film? Like I am not that familiar with the original fairy tale. I have not seen the ballet. How do you feel it does at translating them into a mainstream production for a mass audience in the late 50s, something that we obviously know a lot about, having both been born decades later? It's
really weird because like I like watching this and I'm just like, this is weird for me. How is this not like completely foreign to people in the 50s? Like I was watching it and I was just like, this is bizarre. This is like almost avant-garde at this point. And then, you know, like you like watch, like I'm like, but people in the 50s are watching this. What? You know, it's like this one cartoon that my partner and I found on a DVD in like the Czech Republic, I think, and it's called Critic the Mole, and it itself is like a bizarre hallucinatory experience, and it's from like the 60s, and it's just like, what were y'all doing? Like besides like, you know, like being, you know, like boomers and shit, like what is going on here? And how are you not okay with like queerness?
Yeah.
How are you not okay with like, you guys are like racist and weird and like all fucked up, but it's like you guys like watch this shit and you like weren't more like, I don't know, better at life. Because it
I'm
was
looking up this Kurtek movie now, and I really want to see this. This looks amazing.
it's
This
like on YouTube. It's all on
okay.
YouTube.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, it's really good. And like it is.
Do you think?
It's similarly weird, and also it does the same thing with the backgrounds, where the backgrounds again are all these kind of like weird, hyper real, and broken in wrong ways kind of things. But
That sounds awesome. Speaking of queerness, do you think that there was any intentional effort or attempt or thought giving into trying to code Maleficent in any sort of queer way or anything like that?
it's really weird because she displays like no sexual interest in the prince.
Yeah.
There is no like she doesn't kidnap him and then it's like weird flirty time. She just kidnaps him and she's just like, I'm gonna fuck your life up and it's gonna be great. Look at this thing. Look at this this vision that I have conjured of you as an old broken man going to rescue your princess when everyone you love and know is dead. Like she's not like like flirty, sexy, you're my prisoner the way we would do that now.
Yeah.
And like, but there is a weird sexual tension with her showing up with like Aurora, and it's just kind of like, okay. And there is this weird kind of rivalry with her and the other fairies, and it's just like, what's going on here? And I don't know that it's intentional, but it's incredibly hard not to read it.
Right. It also falls into the larger trend of these old Disney films, where the women who aren't married, the women who don't want to have a family, the women who don't care about having a family are always the villains. And the more open they are, the more blatant they are about that.
Yeah.
Honest they seem,
Yeah, oh yeah, like that's definitely like we fall into that with Maleficent, who is interestingly not coded as a mother. Like like with the Snow White, we get the stepmother who is evil. We often have the evil stepmother, but like Maleficent is not a motherly figure at all. She's like the wicked aunt almost.
Yeah,
it's like weird. She's the aunt who has roommates.
Thinking about it, Lady and the Tramp, that's actually it's a wicked aunt in that one who doesn't have children but has those two cats.
Yeah,
it is so prevalent throughout Disney movies. I mean, that's Cruella de Vil is the same way. A couple decades later, The Rescuers, it's one of the most persistent character types you see in these films. Honestly, the only thing I can think of that like seems to explicitly sort of push against that is Tangled, which the mother character is also very pointedly the main villain in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Although it's not the real mother, it's like the kidnapping mother or whatever. But
see, I could never watch Tangled because I will never get over Gina Rowlands as Rapunzel in fairy tale theater.
Yeah.
Which again was like, you don't get a better adaptation of Rapunzel than that, because that gives you Jeff Bridges saying, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, so pretty and so fair. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair. And then Shelley Duvall just throws like 20 pounds of blonde wig out of a window at him.
Do I have to turn to YouTube to rewatch that stuff too? Or I mean, is there like a Showtime version of HBO Max where I could see that stuff today? Or
like
is it streaming anywhere?
I don't think it's streaming. I think it was on Netflix at one point, but it's not. I don't think it's anywhere anymore, which sucks because it's so good.
Did that ever actually air on normal TV, or did you have to be kids like us who apparently had Showtime to watch it?
I thought it did. I know I ended up renting them on VHS.
Definitely was out on video back in the day.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you know what? Final thoughts before we put Sleeping Beauty to bed. What do you think? If you had kids, would you let them watch this movie? Would you be excited for them to watch it? Would you have to have a discussion with them afterward?
Like,
how would you feel?
I think I definitely would like let them watch it because I turned out fine. And I think as far as Disney films, Maleficent's the one that's going to make you gay. I don't care what happens in Frozen. No. Maleficent will make you gay and not have you over plucking your eyebrows like the Queen in Snow White.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's funny because like when I kind of was like listening to your episode with Maddie and you asked her like what would hold with this what's problematic here, and how would this be received now, and I'm just kind of like there really isn't a whole lot that it doesn't really stumble. Like there's some gender shit, obviously, but
Yeah.
like it's there's no like we don't get racist caricatures. We don't like have anyone like like there's no like abusing women or anything like that. It's just kind of like straightforward fairy tale. And like all media, talk to your kids about the media they consume.
Yeah. I mean, the only problematic thing I could see people trying to pick at would be the fact that the female lead is incapacitated for half the film, but that's literally the concept of the story. You can't have
Yeah,
Sleeping Beauty without that. So
it's in the title. Bitch got to go to bed.
yeah. All right, cool. So thanks for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. Where can people find you and your work on the internet?
You can find me at Dia Lacina on Twitter. And from there, you can basically find everything I do. And you can find my writing predominantly on Paste these days.
What's that? Tell me about Paste. I've never heard of it. No. That's the website that I work at, everybody. I don't mention it usually on the show, but that's my day job. So
thank you for having me. This has been such fun.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Thanks again and have a great day.
Me too. Bye.
Okay, thanks again, Dia Lacina, for stopping by and chatting about Sleeping Beauty. Thanks to all of you for listening. Assuming I make it back from my trip, next week we have a good one. Allison Keene from Paste Magazine, our TV editor, is going to be joining me to talk about Gargoyles, a show I've heard so many great things about over the last 27 years, but that I myself have never seen until right now. I'm guessing it's not about Jason Alexander's annoying sidekick from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'll find out. So tune into that next week. I'm Garrett Martin. This has been What the Plus. Thanks for listening and have a great week.